Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits, where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us to unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets to effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Welcome back, friends and fellow nonprofit nerds. I'm excited to introduce you to Mandy Pearce. Mandy lives in North Carolina, and she has been navigating her personal health journey for many years. It wasn't until just recently that she received some answers and new solutions to help her overcome these challenges she has been facing. And, spoiler alert, it also comes with setting clear boundaries and making decisions that truly align with your best needs. Mandy opened up about her medical adventures and shares her insights with you also. Make sure to stay until the very last because she doesn't let off the gas, and Mandy leaves you with some final words of wisdom that even I needed a reminder of. And before we hear from Mandy and hear about her health journey, I want to give a shout out of gratitude to this season's podcast sponsors. Thank you to Fundraising Academy at National University, Nonprofits HQ, and Chasen & Company. Your support in these conversations are greatly appreciated. Well, Mandy, I am thrilled to have you today in conversation. Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. How are you today?
I am great. Thanks for having me. Excited to join you from North Carolina.
Yeah, I am thrilled. And also shout out to Kate Kramer, who knew that the two of us needed to connect. So Kate's with Bloomerang, and you and I both do some great partnership work with Bloomerang. And she said to me one time, "Do you know Mandy?" And I said, "No, but I would like to." So here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah. She is great. Well, Mandy, I like to start off with a little bit of some unique questions, although the answers might tend to be somewhat the same when you hear these kind of questions. But I like to start off asking you and all my guests, right? Like, what are some of the names that you go by? Because I feel many of us show up day in and day out and they're like, "Hi, who are you?" And we say like our name, our title, and what it is we do in this world, right? So what are some of the names that you tend to go by, either like family, friends, community, work, all the good things? Just, dial us in.
I think for anybody who does happen to follow us at all, they probably know I'm a dog mom first. So I'm a dog mom, and I'm also a gardener. I do a lot of gardening, canning, preserving. So I'm all those titles. Wife, daughter, sister. And I guess lastly, I'm a consultant. It's the thing I do that brings in money, but it's definitely on the bottom of the list for me as far as identification.
Oh, that is fascinating because I'm curious, like curveball question, right? Like, where do you maybe spend the most of your time? Because I would guess consulting, even though that's like last on the title list.
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneur probably shows up first. My husband has two businesses. I have a business. So I spend a lot of my time in the business development world, but I'm learning to spend and wanting to spend more and more of my time in my personal world, because I got really off balance there for a couple of years with the business because I could, right? I don't have kids. My husband's very independent. He does his own thing. I do my own thing. And it just allowed me too much time to spend like, I'm going to work till 11, or I'm going to travel for 10 days in a row or whatever. So I'm working hard to get back to a place where I'm doing things other than work. I do spend a majority of time working, but I'm trying to change that.
Well, and I can't wait to hear more about this gardening, because that might come into conversation, but definitely I heard you. I see you, some of the posts that you share and on your newsletter, and that is just, it's really cool. So it sounds like you wear a lot of hats, including the gardening, the canner, the preserver. What are all of these hats as it relates to those titles?
You know, we so this kind of goes back to health. I know health is a big piece, and that's kind of how we got introduced through Kate. Um, I've always been a gardener, but when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, so we gardened. My mom's family and us, we grew a lot of the things that we ate because that helped make sure that we had food on the plate. And so I learned gardening growing up, and then I started gardening when I had my own house. When I had apartments, I had like the patio balcony garden kind of thing. But when I had
Yeah.
finally got a house, we have a official garden, and it's pretty big. And so we can everything we can. We dehydrate everything we can. We freeze. We grow our own herbs. We make our own spice mixes. We put up our own chicken broth. I mean, if we don't have to buy it and we don't have to buy food that's processed, we don't. We try to eat as healthy as possible because it really helps overall with my health. Well, everybody's
Yeah.
health, but I've noticed it especially. And so we spend a good bit of time doing that.
That is really cool. It sounds like a little bit of a homestead, which
Yeah.
I have gravitated towards more and more, Mandy. And we've shared, we've even gotten to meet, in person. So that was fantastic. And my roots go back to Georgia and South Carolina. I went to college in North Carolina for a year. So your location is very familiar to me. And so when you talk about this, it literally does like bring up some childhood memories. We used to grow strawberries, watermelons, all kinds of things. And it's a lot of fun. Well, you have mentioned a couple of times about your health, and I would love, like, can we just open that can of worms? Can you just share with us and all of our listeners, because I'm sure many of us, myself included, have been on a health journey. But when I heard your health journey, Mandy, I absolutely knew that this is a story that I think so many more people, in particular nonprofit consultants, need to know about. So what has your health journey looked like?
A hot mess.
To put it nicely.
Right? I'll give you the highlights because it's way too much to cover in a 30-minute podcast. But I
Sure.
started noticing my major health issues in 2017, 18. And it culminated in 2019. My gut health was just beyond horrible. And I started working with a health coach in California to sort of get that back. I had adrenal fatigue from stress and too much work. I ended up having half my thyroid taken out, also part of the adrenal fatigue, but also because my family has a history of thyroid disease. So the combination of that was awesome. And when I finally got my gut health back, I was in a place where before that I couldn't eat and process meats. I didn't have enough acid in my stomach. I had heartburn all the time. I had indigestion all the time. I had all these things because my gut was out of balance. Got that fixed. And then the next year was COVID. Obviously, 2020 was great. Yay. And
Another hot mess, right?
right. My dog, my love of my life, Leo, he passed away on September 11th, 2020. And that was super stressful and obviously wasn't great, the stress thing for my body. And I ruptured a disc in my back that Christmas and ended up completely incapacitated for a period of time. Took a long time to get over that. Started back in a better place, but I was still working too much, traveling too much, doing all the stuff. And 2022, I started with just a lot of, I'd go to my chiropractor, but I was having to go to the chiropractor too much. She doesn't say, come see me every week, but I was there all the time because I'm like, this hurts, that hurts, this is out of place, that's out of place. Things were just falling apart really in my body. And she said to me, do you keep your cell phone in your bedroom charging at night? And I was like, yeah. And she was just like, move your cell phone out of your room. And I was like, okay. And the very next day, I woke up in less pain. My back didn't hurt. My joints weren't achy. I am extremely sensitive to EMFs. And I was having all kinds of connective tissue issues. Love the way that sounds. Because of EMFs, which when you travel, if you have traveled at all, planes are the worst place in the world for EMFs. So it was making it worse all the time. And so this past year, I tore a tendon in my ankle. I had the disc issue in my back. I have a huge tear in my shoulder labrum. And then I got diagnosed last year at the beginning of the year with stage 4 chondromalacia patella, which is basically runner's knee with a whole bunch of extra awesome stuff like arthritis and osteoarthritis and bursitis and all kinds of stuff. And I couldn't walk. So for a period of time, my husband was like, "We please just get a walker. We please just get a cane. We please just get a walker." And I was like, no. I had a walker for my back, but I was like, no, I'm going to be able to deal with this. So I went to an ortho and he's like, "Oh, you qualify for a knee replacement." I was like, no. And so I've started doing all the experimental therapies, and fast forward a year and a half, I had stem cells shot in May, which was the most amazing thing in the world. If you're considering it and you qualify, do not listen to anybody who says it's not FDA approved, blah, blah, blah. They do it in every other country in the world. It's amazing. I can walk.
Good.
I have been pain-free since July 4th, except for like one day when I went hiking too far. The swelling in my knee is almost gone. And I mean, yeah, there's things I still can't do. I can't walk more than a mile yet, but hell, I couldn't walk a block a year ago. I couldn't walk my dogs at all. So that has gotten better. I'm participating in something called a React magnet therapy. There are 44 locations around the country. One of them is an hour from me. And it has improved my entire body health more than I can possibly imagine. If you're into alternative therapies and you're good with that, it is FDA approved. But I've been doing that. So that's getting better. And then the last thing was I started having all these red bumps, itching, red face stuff happening from February 2023 on. And the first 2 doctors I went to were like, "Oh, you have rosacea." And I was like, "No, I don't." And so we had biopsies done and they're like, "Technically it's not rosacea, but we're not sure what it is. We're just going to keep an eye on it." And I was like, maybe no. So I reached out to a girl that I met, Danielle Wallace. She's super phenomenal, amazing. Look her up. She's a fundraiser and she's a nurse and she does health coaching. And so I started working with her a couple of months ago, and she said, "You have a bacterial overgrowth in your gut." And I was like, "Great, let's figure out what that is." And this morning, as I was just sharing with you before we went live, I just got my test results back. And I have so many bacterial overgrowths in my stomach. I have staph, I have E. coli, and I have H. pylori, which for any of you who've ever heard of it, know it's like horrendous when it's an overgrowth. And it causes this exact stuff that's happening on my face. So now that I know all of that, we're working to clear it up. And I'm sure that in a couple of months, I'm going to be completely better from that. So again, stress makes it worse. EMF makes it worse. Sitting in front of the computer makes it worse. And so it's caused me to stop and really reassess my priorities in life. Yay!
Yeah, it sounds like, and that is a lot. So, I mean, going back to 2017, I think if I heard that date right, like this has been years and years on the journey. And thank you. I just want to say thank you, Mandy, for having the willingness and the openness to share that, because there's so many things within my body that I am clueless about. I feel disconnected about. And I'm in my mid 40s, right? Like working towards the 50s. Yeah. And also like the things that I didn't do probably the best I could have for my body. So I'm sure this is resonating with so many people that are listening. And you did say, stress, like stress is some of what, creates this flare up. So what are you having to do now, maybe to manage your well-being and to make sure that you're taking care of the best version of Mandy so you can be all of those titles and wear all of those hats without being in, I don't know, pain or, discomfort?
So I've had to do intentional taking time off. I've had to say, I am not working after this time. I am not scheduling more meetings than this that require me to be on a Zoom. And I've made some decisions about my business going forward, starting next year, that will give me the space that I need to really not only run the business, but not have to like put my health on the line to do it. And my team is supporting all of that. They know all the reasons. And I'm also trying to make sure my team is doing the same thing. And I'm constantly having these conversations with them, like, I need you to unplug and not respond to emails this weekend. I'm gonna email you, but I don't expect to hear back from you till next week. Or please go on vacation and do not look at your email. I don't expect to hear back from you. Like if it's blood or flood, I will call you, but please, otherwise don't, whatever. And so I am, I'm working with the health coach, loving that. I started Tai Chi yesterday, one-on-one private lessons. Loved it.
That's
So,
fun. It's a little bit of like movement things, right?
and it's good for your joints, which is why I'm like, okay, I need something easy, but that's going to like support all of that. I do have personal
Right.
training twice a week, which has really been just integral in fixing my knee. And because your knee's messed up, then your back's messed up. Your back's messed up, then your shoulder's messed up. Like it's,
Everything.
the head bone's connected to the neck
It's
bone kind of thing.
connected.
Okay. And so I've done that. My husband and I last year implemented a thing where we're like, we are going to go somewhere every quarter, even just a weekend, right? Just so we have
Love
time
that.
together away without the dogs, because I love them, but still.
Yeah.
So we started doing that last year. I needed that thing to look forward to because
Yes.
many of you know that are entrepreneurs, man, we could just work all the time. There's always something to be done. Just got to
Yes.
schedule the time off. And so we started doing that. I have a big trip that we're looking at planning for a 10-year wedding anniversary in 2026. So I'm actually planning, I'm a super planner. For those of you that don't know me, my mom says I'm a triple A type A personality. And so I'm a super planner. So I've started that already. So those things are giving me things to look forward to. And, I've got some goals for the holidays. I always take off a month at the holidays. I love the holidays. I don't
Okay.
have to work with people. So I take a week
Yeah.
off for my birthday in November. I take a week off to go to the beach with my family in October. And then I take off this year from November 13th to January 13th. We're just closed. So,
Okay. Yeah.
you
I
just do the
That
thing.
is fantastic. Yeah, that is fantastic. So one of the questions I like to ask, right? Like, when was your last vacation or when is your next one? But I want to know more about these quarterly trips because that seems intentional, purposeful, and you're setting them. So like, how far out do you have them planned, or do you just have the date on your calendar? Like,
Oh
give me
no.
more details on how this works.
So we live close to Biltmore, Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina, and we're
Yes.
season pass holders. So we like to go to Biltmore because I don't have to leave the property. There's multiple restaurants
Yeah.
to choose from. There's activities. There's the pool. There you can just stay. You can get up and hike. You can sleep. You can whatever you want, And so we plan to go there a couple of times a year, and it's just for a weekend. So like 2 nights. That's it. And then we get to come home. But it's nice. We get to completely unplug. Someone else makes the bed. Someone else fixes the food. Someone else does all the things.
Right.
And then I took off. So that's a us together thing. But like I took off 10 days, end of July, beginning of August, to stay at home to get things done. Because I wanted to sit down and watch an hour of TV at lunch and eat my lunch. And then I want
Yes.
to do all these little house projects or get things ready for the holidays or plant stuff in my yard or take a nap. Like just me. It's not
Right.
like my husband's stuff. And like if he's around and he's not working and he wants to go get lunch, we will. But that's not the purpose of that
Yeah.
week. And it was amazing. It was amazing. So I'm going to start doing that. I don't know if it'll be the same week every year, but like a time when I know that no one needs me, that I'm around, that I can be home without being needed. And it
Yeah.
was great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. So these trips are local, right? And because what you're saying, like being on the computer creates flare-ups, being on flights, flare up. That's something I think you and I do a lot, at least for me. Like I am behind this computer a lot of hours, not 24/7, but I am on this computer a lot of hours. And for both work and pleasure, I tend to travel a lot. Are you switching your travel to like driving? Are you switching your meetings to in person? What does that look like for you as a place, really, Mandy, of like boundaries, commitment to health, right? Like, what does that look like for you in the future?
So it's always been for me, like when I work with clients, unless there's a need for us to be on a video, I don't need to be on video
Sure.
with you. I worked my consulting business for a decade before Zoom calls really became a thing. I don't
Right.
need, right? Sometimes just to
Yep.
initially build rapport, see what someone looks like, that kind of thing. Sure. Beyond that, I'm like, it's a phone call. Marie prefers
Yeah.
calls.
This
Like whatever
works
you,
fine.
yeah, knock that out. It's all good. I can be making my tea, checking my mail, putting the laundry in the dryer while I'm on the phone with you. I don't need to see your face to have a conversation. So for me, that's always
Sure.
kind of been the way I operate.
Okay.
But
I'm really curious before you jump further, I'm going to jump in a little bit. Do you get any pushback from people because now we have such this virtual conference culture? Yeah,
yes,
I'm really curious.
this is what I would say. And my mom said this to me last year, and it's just stuck with me because I've found it to be true as well. When you tell people what the rules are, they tend to follow them. So if you
Yeah.
don't give them the option, they don't typically ask. And if they do ask, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't do Zoom calls. Or I'm sorry, I'm not available for a Zoom call during that time.
Yeah.
I just say
Yeah.
no. Say no.
That,
Um,
yeah, I like that.
so next year, you're the first person I've told this to outside my team. I don't know, when does this drop? How soon is the world going to know this information? So I'm not traveling next year for work. I have
Okay.
1 or 2 clients that I will probably travel to see because of the level of work that we're doing with them, but that's it. And on those trips, my husband will also go with me this time, so we will have some other time on that trip. It won't just be work. So that's one thing that's happening next year. That's a reality. So people that are working with me within a driving distance will get to see my face, but everybody else will pretty much be working with the rest of my team, which is fine. That's great.
Yeah.
That's why we have an amazing team.
Or on the
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that is a big change. And I want to honor you for making that decision because I do know that's a big decision and it is not one to take lightly. And thank you for, again, sharing that as well. Hopefully the announcement comes out before the podcast drops, or who knows, right? It might be the chicken and the egg. Yeah, but that's a big one. And it sounds like you've got the full support of everyone in your network, your team, as well as your husband.
yes. So I said to them, I've been full-time in business for over 15 years now. I've worked really hard. I've worked more hours than
Yeah.
I need to, like, I've put it in, I put the time in. So this
Right.
year, 2025, I am going to a formal for Mandy 4-day work week. I will work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with people, have meetings, do that stuff. On Fridays, I will not work with anybody. I may get work done in the office. I may do administrative things, but I'm not going to work on Monday, Sunday, or Saturday next year at all. And my whole team knows it and supports it. And I will have 1 day next year dedicated to if I have to have video calls, so that way I can manage all of this and keep it in check.
Yeah.
And that way I'll know when I can schedule those and when they're available. So it may limit me. Some people may be like, I don't want to work with you if I can't see you. That's okay. That's your call. I'm in a place now where I can say, I appreciate that. I appreciate your boundaries and I know mine. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And
That's right.
so those are the things I'm implementing next year. And it's huge.
Oh, this is big.
Change. Big change. And it's
Yeah,
gonna
it's a
be
big
hard. I'm
change.
gonna have to say, I'm not working this weekend. I'm gonna have to make myself not check the emails, not walk in the office and turn the computer on and to be like, well, it's raining. I could get some stuff done. Like, to get back to a place where you have your own hobbies all the time and all the things you can do to occupy your time other than work. When you get to the point
Yeah.
where you and I are, it's a challenge. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
getting back to that. I'm getting back to me.
Good for you. I love that. Love that. And support it wholly. Absolutely. Well, Mandy, you've shared some great insights, a lot of personal journey. So thank you for that. I'm sure people are going to say, all right, I need to know more about Mandy, more about the, company and what she does for our amazing sector. Where can people find out more about you as well as the company?
Fundingforgood.org. And so we work with nonprofits, but we also work with consultants who are starting and growing their businesses. So if you're in that space and you're like, I want some coaching or I want some support, I do that. And you're welcome to email me directly, Mandy, M-A-N-D-Y, at fundingforgood.org. So those are probably the 2 easiest ways to reach us. And in case you're wondering, I am the one who checks my email. I am the one you will hear from, unless you're asking a tech question, and then the tech team will get that. But I am the person behind the email. Some people are like, she probably has a VP checking her emails. I'm like, no, I do not.
No, yeah. No, that's very, very great. Okay, any final words or of wisdom or advice that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the biggest thing I've learned in both of the sectors I work with this past year, and I've said, and people have started like being like, oh my God, I never thought about that. The thing that's caused me a lot of stress until I learned to let it go, and the thing that I see that causes other people a lot of stress is this. You cannot be more concerned about your staff, your client, your board's success than they are with whatever that is, whether it's fundraising, whether it's meeting a deadline, whether it's completing a project, whatever it is. You can't be more concerned about it than they are, right? Because that just causes you a ton of, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I have to do this for them because they haven't done it yet, or I have to remind them because they haven't done it yet, or I have to check up on them because they haven't done it yet. And it stresses us out, right? You have to learn to let some of that go and give other people the chance to be responsible or fall on their face. Like, I don't know how another way to say that. And I think once we as a collective start doing that, we're going to feel a lot better.
I don't know about our listeners, but I needed that reminder today, Mandy. So thank you for sharing that. Even after all of these years, I catch myself like in that cycle of follow up and check-ins and don't forget this, don't forget that. And maybe it's my AAA personality as well, right? Like really looking at it from that perspective, but such a great reminder and wonderful final words to leave our listeners to. So Mandy, thank you. And best of luck to you on this health journey. And I cannot wait to see what unfolds for you next. So thanks for sharing and coming on to, share more with everyone listening. So
Thanks for having me.